Welcome back as we work to connect with each other and with Jesus. Glad that you're able to join us here. And you can see I'm in our Love Thy Neighbor room. And this is our food ministry. It's our room that we store the food products. You can see the shelves over here. We've got the freezers that have a lot of meat and all those types of products. But this is our room that we have to support our food ministry and give it the space it needs to make sure we can serve our communities. Love Thy Neighbor has been going on for about 10 years. And it's a ministry where the third Wednesday of every month we give out food to those who have called and sign up, and we prepare a box for them. Now, it's the third Wednesday of every month, but if there's a need that's not on the third Wednesday, we work hard to fill it and try to make sure we help people in our community. And over here you can see that there is a box of what we have in our Love Thy Neighbor food distribution. And the box didn't have the meat in it yet because it's a perishable item. But we also this month included some cleaning supplies, household objects, things that have been a little difficult for people to get a hold of right now. But Love Thy Neighbor helps us to remember that there are different types of needs that people have. So we see that there's a connection between the spiritual and the physical sustenance that we require. In Luke chapter 9, the disciples had just been sent out to do ministry. They preached the gospel and they healed the sick. So they come back to Jesus and they're real excited about what's happening and all that God did in and through them. And so they get excited about that, but a large crowd has gathered and it was getting late in the day. So the disciples tell Jesus that you need to send these people home so they can get food to eat. Well, there were about 5,000 people, and Jesus goes to his disciples, you feed them. You give them something to eat. I imagine that was a question the disciples just didn't have an answer for. To say they were shocked would be an understatement. And so Jesus took what they had. They had 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. He broke the bread, gave thanks, and then began distributing the food. He gave it out. And not only were people able to eat, they were able to be satisfied. Their hunger was completely gone because they had all they needed. But then there were 12 basketfuls left over. You know, that's what happens when we trust God and trust our provisions. See, the disciples had provided physical healing. They had preached a spiritual message. And now Jesus said, you need to give them a recurring physical need. You need to feed them. And too many times we are real good at trying to help someone and moving on. But as the pandemic of COVID-19 continues, you know, there are areas that are reopening and trying to figure out what the new normal is going to look like. But, you know, as we reopen, as things go back to whatever the new normal is, I hope we don't just continue to live in our cocoons. You know, when all this started, there was a big hoarding time period where the shelves at the grocery stores were barren and empty and people couldn't get food, and we had to set up times for people to shop and not shop, and stores were changing hours and practices. Well, I hope this hoarding principle doesn't creep into our spiritual lives, because there's a connection between the physical and the spiritual. So as we work to connect with Jesus and each other, we have to first and foremost remember that in order to feed others, in order to serve others, we have to have the spiritual food that we need, which means we need to connect with Jesus. We need to spend time in his word. We need to spend time in prayer. And we need to allow Jesus to speak into our lives. And then when we do that, we need to live the selfless life that Jesus calls us to live. I mean, we can have places like Love Thy Neighbor and all the food that we have here and the 60 plus people that we help per month. But if all we're doing is saying, here you go, don't come back, then we've missed the opportunity to invest in people. See, you encounter people. You're in this world not just so you can survive, not so you can have a good time, but so you can impact the world with the love and message of Jesus Christ. It's spiritual and it's physical. Stay connected to Jesus and each other.